Yes, well, welcome aboard to Patrick Christys Tonight. Like I said, I've got a heck of a lot coming your way because, well, I attended one of the hate marches, didn't I, a little bit earlier on. I wanted to go to try to expose them and see really what the reality is on the ground there. I'm going to be joined by a whole host of unmissable guests throughout the course of this show. We're also going to be bringing you my box office panel, won't we? But, of course, Sir Keir Starmer did face a Labour Party rebellion in the House of Commons. We're going to have all of that and much, much more coming your way. Look, pro-Palestinian supporters, they held a mass demonstration, didn't they, opposite the Houses of Parliament earlier this evening, as the Gaza ceasefire vote progressed inside the chamber. But get a load of this, OK? A wise man once said the definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting to get a different result. Well, if that's true, Rishi Sunak's illegal immigration strategy was madder than a box of frogs until today. The Rwanda plan got a kicking in the courts, a policy backed by the public but forwarded by a government that won a huge majority at the last election. Has democracy died? But tonight, Rishi came out fighting, not just for himself, but for the British people who want to stop the boats. Here he is, just hours ago, in a frankly sensational press conference, finally telling the ECHR, Strasbourg courts and lefty lawyers where to go.
But of course, we must be honest about the fact that even once Parliament has changed the law here at home, we could still face challenges from the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. I told Parliament earlier today that I'm prepared to change our laws and revisit those international relationships to remove the obstacles in our way. So let me tell everybody now, I will not allow a foreign court to block these flights. If the Strasbourg court chooses to intervene against the expressed wishes of Parliament, I am prepared to do what is necessary to get flights off.
Well, the Deputy Chairman of the Tory party, Lee Anderson, who joins me shortly, by the way, thinks that we should just ignore the law and get the planes in the air right now. Let me know what you think about that. gbviews@gbnews.com. I want to hear from you on this today. I'll go to the inbox. More letters of no confidence have reportedly been submitted. Now, Sunak's promise to, quote, end the merry-go-round. Well, it all sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? And could that be because it is? Can he be trusted to deliver on his words? Well, Braverman thinks definitely not. Her camp have hit out again tonight. Yep, there we go. As Braverman tweeted out this was through an ally, this is a treaty which he's putting in legislation. It's just another version of Plan A. He'll be stuck in the courts again. More magic tricks from Rishi's magical thinking. And so while his replacement, the big, bad James Cleverly, was exposed today by the Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper for being a wet. You might have missed this, but we didn't.
I don't believe the new Home Secretary ever believed in the Rwanda plan. He distanced himself from it and his predecessor's language on it. He may even, on occasion, have privately called it bat. But he and I agree.
Yeah, well, if that wasn't bad enough either, another Home Office minister is also revealed to have taken the knee during the BLM protesters. So, to summarise, the signs are, I think, good. Better than they were this morning, anyway. But talk is cheap. According to Sunak, when he said that he would stop the boats, he meant it. So, should we make it happen by getting out of the ECHR ASAP? But has Sunak won over his party? I'll be speaking very shortly to former Environment Secretary Ranil Jayawardena in just a moment. But joining me right now, very gratefully so, is the Conservative MP for Stone. It's Sir Bill Cash. Sir Bill, thank you very, very much. Has Rishi won you over with this latest comment, then, explosive?
Well, the short answer is that the jury is out, and for that very good reason. I think the intentions are in the right direction. There is talk of emergency legislation, and that's all very encouraging, but it has to be the right kind of legislation. And basically, as I said to the Home Secretary this afternoon, you've got a legislation which has to be clear, express, and actually has to effectively override those provisions in the European Court and also the Human Rights Act and also the Refugee Convention. And I put down an amendment which was supported by around 60, in fact it would have been many more if more people had had a chance to sign it, about 2 years ago. And that said that notwithstanding the existing legislation, that's the key wording, and that has hallowed words, those are hallowed words, they're well understood by the courts and by those who interpret legislation, and the net result is that you then get what you want on the tin. So the legislation actually provides something which the courts have to apply. It's not quite overriding the judges. It's not quite as simple as
I get that, but it requires a bit of bottle, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, actually, yes, and I think I've got a bit of bottle. I think people have noticed that over the last 40 years.
You have, but unfortunately you're not the one with your finger on the trigger, are you?
Well, I'm not so sure about that, but for this reason, that actually there is an enormous amount of support welling up in the House of Commons. I was at a meeting earlier this evening amongst the Conservative MPs who do really want the notwithstanding provision to be embedded. If you provide a clear, unambiguous piece of legislation and then it's taken to the courts will apply it. And there's no point in just saying, oh, the judges are the enemies. The judges will apply clear and unambiguous...
But you know what would send a real message, seriously,
Yeah.
is if you handed a vote no confidence in.
No, I'm not going to do anything of the kind. Look, we've got a big crisis on our hands and we've got to get this right. And frankly, I don't have the slightest confidence in Keir Starmer and his rabble. I'll tell you this, if you had a confidence motion or you get rid of Rishi Sunak at this moment in time when he's coming up with these ideas, I've already been talking to government ministers since the debate ended this afternoon, or their statements ended this afternoon, and I'm getting a very good response from them. They are listening, and basically I think we can solve the problem, but it has to be clear and unambiguous legislation, and it has to provide the judges with the message that Parliament has to prevail.
The Deputy Chair, your Deputy Chair, Lee Anderson, is going to be sitting just over there.
Yes.
Later on this hour.
Yes.
He thinks we should ignore the law and get the planes taken off. What do you reckon to that?
Well, look, Lee and I are great friends, so make no mistake about that, very close friends. It's not quite my take. I don't actually believe that you can just do that. I think what we need to do is to get the legislation right and to make quite certain that it is complete belt and braces and copper-bottomed. It can be done. The words are there, and in fact, on the exiting the European Union, I used this formula about notwithstanding, and that was accepted by Boris in the Withdrawal Agreement Act of 2020, and it guarantees British sovereignty. What I want is a guarantee that this legislation will stop the boats, and it can be done, but it's going to require drafting in a particular way, and I'm already engaged in discussions with the government about how to do that.
Why should the British public trust any of this? I'm not saying they shouldn't trust you. I mean, you're clearly a man of conviction. But why should they trust Rishi Sunak? Suella Braverman's just come out with a bombshell letter. I mean, she obviously doesn't believe a word of it. She's just already piped up through an ally saying that he lied to her about wanting to get out of the ECHR. James Cleverly, the new Home Sec, doesn't want to get out of the ECHR. We've got a new Home Office minister who also took the knee, apparently, at one of the BLM marches. I mean, what's going on here, you know?
Yes, well, of course, and I quite understand the concern for those reasons, but what I am saying to you is this is a resolvable problem. There is an international part of this. The Refugee Convention, which we haven't mentioned yet, is a very important part of this. And in the amendment I put down a couple of years ago, it actually would have excluded the application of the Refugee Convention as well.
Right. And
basically, I'm told that there are 63 references, so I heard today, spilling around the place of judgments and rulings by the court which deals with the Refugee Convention. Okay. And those have got to be overridden. If you actually override the Refugee Convention, then all the case law in this particular case, as applied to our own problem with regard to the borders, will in fact be solved. OK,
look, very quickly, because we're pressed for time here, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to vote in no confidence. You're not going to hand a letter in. You don't agree with...
No, I didn't say that I was... Look, people know me. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm interested in solutions, not in gestures.
Yeah, fine. But you also don't think that we should just override it straight away like Lee Anderson, get the planes in the air. So do you also want us out of the ECHR?
I would be happy if we did, but in this particular instance, my first priority is the borders of the United Kingdom, our sovereignty, our self-government and our democracy. That's what I want to deliver. And when I say that, it's not bullshit.
OK, well, we're off to a flyer tonight, aren't we? That is Bill Cash. Sorry if anyone's offended by the language, but there we go.